Um, Thank you for being here. In the event, it's super important what you do with industries, with companies. Your trajectory is incredible, and you just gave a conference in our summits talking about heroes in food safety and what leaders need to take into consideration is not only the food safety, it's the health of uh, of the public, right? So I just wanted to ask you, what do you consider is the most important thing for leaders to implement or to do to ensure that their companies are doing what they are supposed to do?
I think that too many times companies think about the short term, but they don't think about the long term. It may be difficult and expensive to focus on food safety now, but it'll be even more difficult and more expensive if you don't focus on it now. So when we look at food safety, it's not we'll tackle it when it becomes a problem. We have to always focus on it. You know, many times it doesn't matter where you are. When you're with your child, you say, before we cross the street, you look both ways because there's always a potential. The same thing has to be the foundational understanding. It's not everything was fine until there was a problem. There's always a danger. There's always a potential. And if you are operating like there's always a potential, then it's not going to come as a shock when all of a sudden you have to change your protocols or change your procedures or change your messaging. So that's what I would recommend, is to always focus on the idea that there is every chance that there's a problem right now that you don't know about. And so when you look at the idea of when do you focus on food safety, the answer is always. Every product, every shift, every day, every person. Because that is the only way we're truly going to be all heroes and make sure that we protect every plate.
There was data that you mentioned, or as an example, in your conference, you said companies react and they don't act constantly. They just react. The
Right.
cost of reacting is way higher than
Oh,
actively
sometimes like 20
participating, right?
times. So 5 million, theoretically, 5 million to prevent a situation, but we can't justify that. It's too expensive. And then we make the headlines, there's
Yeah.
lawsuits, people are dead. And now we can all of a sudden, we can justify 100 million, 200 million. Well, A, why not invest a smaller amount? And you know what? The company will recover financially, but those families, they'll never recover. And sometimes a brand reputation will also never recover.
I think one that's the key thing that struck me personally when I was hearing your conference. There is legal costs and recall costs and whatever, but you cannot put a cost or a price in human life. And I think
100%.
I think that's a message that everybody in the room uh, really kept for themselves. I was looking at their faces and they were hit by that, and I think that is important also for them to remember always.
Well, so many families that have lost a child or a parent or a sibling, anyway, or a friend, they worry that that harm, that impact, that loss is just the cost of doing business. It's just normalized and the company just moves on and just absorbs the hit. They absorb the cost, they absorb the headlines, and we will move on. It can't be that way. There are companies that years ago had a major failure and they remember it every year. They have like a commemoration.
Yep.
And they say, we're here to remember because we do not want to forget.
Mhm.
There are companies that do, we don't talk, they won't talk about it anymore. That's the past, right? But I've asked them, what is your legacy? Oh, look what we did after that outbreak. Look what we did after that recall. But then I asked them, how are you navigating your legacy going forward? And they don't have an answer. Again, if they're always focused on food safety, if they're always doing, then they are working on their legacy moving forward.
What would be an example that you really remember, an important example of a company that did actually turn around a difficult situation and now maybe is doing the stuff that they have to do? You don't have to mention any brands, but
Sure. You know, there are companies out there that literally changed not only the way that they did things, and they brought in scientists and they brought in experts. And yes, it was after the fact, but they took the step of making sure that they didn't keep it siloed, like they didn't keep it a secret.
Okay.
They told other companies, even their other competitors, here's what we learned. Here's what we are now doing. Here is how we are changing things. Because it's one thing to focus on how you protect yourself, but if you protect others, if you help other companies in the same situation, now you're optimizing what you're doing. You're saying that food safety is not competitive. It is so important that we need to tell everyone, hey, look what we learned, look what we tried, and look what we have gained. You should try this too. Those companies are the ones that, I mean, I hesitate to say the word proud,
okay.
but that's the way leadership should be.
Yes.
You don't do it just for your ego, you do it for your impact.
And I think one of the things you just mentioned that I want to go back a little bit is on sharing information, because it's so easy to do your plan and become better and keep it to yourself. But then ultimately, we are all part of a system that is immense. From farm to fork, there's a lot of steps to get the food from the farm to your table. And the system cannot work by itself. The companies cannot work by itself if we want to create a system that it's strong and sustainable and safe, right?
Well, if you were to buy a tomato or a head of lettuce, you don't necessarily know what company or what farm they came from. And what we often see is when there is a recall of, let's say, this company's tomatoes, this farm's tomatoes, this city's, this location,
Then
guess what?
Yeah.
All tomatoes, all produce ends up seeing an impact because the people are like, I'm not going to buy any tomatoes, right? So we see this quite often. And you know what else happens is, I know this is kind of beyond food safety. That impacts sustainability.
Of course.
It impacts access because now people are throwing away perfectly good produce, perfectly good food because they don't know if it's from this company or this company.
Yeah.
And people are throwing away food for no reason. So the better any company, whether it is a hamburger or a tomato, is working with the industry, it supports not only the industry, but the company, the brand, the product, but even bigger, it supports all consumers.
And this is really hard to interpret because we only think about either food safety or either maintenance or either sustainability, but they are all part of a whole thing.
It is.
In these type of forums, we try to get all of these other views, other ideas that can collide or can construct. The idea is to have these discussions between all parts. So would you have a message for all the people that could not be here at the event, maybe a final message about the summit, about your experience, and a message for them to take home and work in the companies?
One of the things that I've seen here at this conference is that the variety of topics that were covered, from sustainability to food fraud and food safety, they're all connected. At some point, a problem with food fraud becomes a problem with food safety. At some point, a problem with food safety becomes a problem with sustainability and access. So we can't say that it's this, but not this until it's too late and they become one another. Those who are most successful are looking at all these different issues and how they connect, and they don't wait until it's too late. And when you start looking at it through those multiple lenses, you have a bigger picture, and you can also communicate with more stakeholders. And when you have a mission, like a mission statement for your company, and you can be very clear in how you articulate that with your stakeholders, that's important, because many times at a restaurant or at a retailer, they're not the cause of the problem, but many times, because that's where consumers buy it, they think that that's where the problem is. So a problem over here becomes the problem that they got to deal with. So these retailers and restaurants, they need to be able to communicate effectively with their suppliers, their inspectors, their distributors, their cooks, their servers, every stakeholder. You have to be very clear on your goal. You have to be very clear on why this is important. And when we do that, that is how we have a long-term impact. Are you familiar with the phrase, if you give a man a fish, he eats that day? But if you teach a man to fish, he can eat forever.
Yeah.
Same thing. If you tell a person, you have to do this. Why? Because I said so. They'll do it right now. But if you tell them why and help them understand how important that is, then they'll do it today and tomorrow and the next day. And your stakeholders will be more supportive and engaged in your mission.
So there you go. For everyone that could not be here at the event, I think this is one of the key messages that they have to understand, even though they didn't hear about your conference and all the other conferences. You have to know the context, show your people the context, the why, the reasons, and they will, I'm sure you will have a better culture in your company. And we hope to see you in the next summit in next year. So Darin, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.